Hello, everyone. My name is Mellissa Sassi, and I am the Chief Penguin of IBM Z. I head up student and entrepreneur experience globally within the IBM Z division of IBM. I am also the CEO and founder of a youth-led nonprofit that has taught tens of thousands of young people to code in 12 countries. It's called Mentor Nations. Thank you for being part of this today. I'm really excited to share my secret sauce when it comes to personal branding and a number of steps that you can take to also control your narrative when you're not in the room. I'm going to just share my screen, so give me 1 second to pull it up. Here we go. All right, excellent. So again, how to control your own narrative in 5 easy steps. Now, the content that I'm sharing with you today, it was really inspired and adapted from material by 3 of my very good friends, Dux Raymond Sai, Donna Sakar, and Mary Rodriguez. So let's jump in. All right, so if you follow these 5 steps, you'll be able to really create your own brand and control how others see and describe you when you are not in the room. So let's talk about what to do in step 1. First, find your superpower. Now, what is that secret sauce that you bring to the table? And make it not so secret. Own it. It's your secret weapon. What I'd like you to do first is I'd like you to Google yourself. Take your first and your last name and see what is it that you're known for based on what you found in Google. Do you even find yourself? If you don't find yourself, that means you've got to work on your personal brand. Now, if you Google me, Mellissa Sassi, you'll find a lot of stuff. You'll find a lot of stuff on youth empowerment, empowering women and girls in underrepresented communities. You'll also find stuff on education, specifically digital skills. You'll also find stuff on my work in the startup ecosystem. These are things that I've worked hard to curate because that's my secret sauce, if you will. That's my superpower. So think about what's that unique thing about you? What's that one thing that you're known for? And in order to be able to use that secret weapon, you have to know yourself. So think about your strengths. What is it about you that enables you to be authentic and credible and transparent? Whether you're online or offline, just be you. All right. Step 2, always know your audience. Think about who's listening. You're not going to apply the same language in Instagram, in Facebook, in LinkedIn, in Twitter, and TikTok. But speak, write, share, just be. And again, be your authentic self. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Tell relevant stories. Always act with empathy. And think about how can you teach and inspire others. Step 3, be there and be consistent. But ultimately just show up and be present. Take part in social media, create content, and take part in events. So that could be your own blog. That could be your own website. It could be sharing thoughts in LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, wherever you fancy. Build useful messaging and stick with that message. Again, be useful. Create your own website if you don't already have one. Manage it. Control your message with your own mediums, but ultimately build your brand. Focusing again on your superpowers and letting people have an opportunity to know the real you. How many times have you met someone and you feel like you meet them online and offline and you meet a different person? Be you no matter where you are, the authentic, transparent you. Step 4, think about who your industry peers are. Who is your peer group? Engage with them, network, follow up, lend a helping hand. And that means setting goals to expand your network and actually do it, not just talk about it. Be proactive when you meet somebody new. Follow up right away with a text, with a tweet, with whatever makes sense for you and your medium. Be prepared to learn from others and share. Be helpful. Most importantly, be a friend. Step 5, build unique emotional connections. Empower others to share their stories. Listen to their stories, listen to what they're saying, and speak with empathy, meaning you're caring about the words that are coming out of your mouth. I've heard this phrase before: empowered women empower other women. Empowered people empower other people, but ultimately emotionally connect, on a deeper level. Find what connects you, enable that other person to shine. Encourage others to be authentic. It's super contagious when you're sharing content or sharing videos or chatting with others and they feel like they really know you in real life, even if if they've only met you through an online channel. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Own your vulnerable side. Own your vulnerable thoughts. Enable vulnerabilities to shine. So now let's talk about how I did this. So number 1, we talked about finding your superpower. For me, I turned my worst nightmare into my superpower. What does that mean? What I mean by that is I am a victim, and my children are victims of parental kidnapping. Terrible, worst nightmare, waking up one day and finding your children are gone. I never got my children back. I know exactly where they are. They're safe, they're healthy, they're normal, adjusted kids. And one day, my daughter said to me, she said, "Mommy, I'm learning Microsoft." That's her accent. And I realized she was learning Microsoft Word in her classroom, and she didn't have access to her own device. And I thought, wow, I may not have been able to control other aspects of their lives, but getting computers into her classroom, well, that's something that I can control. Because at the time I was working at Microsoft. I spent 5 years at Microsoft. My last role at Microsoft was as an impact investor. And I built internet and energy solutions around the world. I brought digital skills to the newly connected. Why did I focus part of my career on digital inclusion, and why is it such a big part of me right now? It's because of that day that my daughter said, Mommy, I'm learning Microsoft." And when she said that, I thought, wow, I can get computers in her classroom. And I set out on this mission, and I ended up bringing 400 laptops to 20 schools across Tunisia, which is where they live. As part of that, I realized that it's not just about having a device. You need to have access to digital skills. So I started traveling around with a group of engineers, teaching young people to code. And that led to me starting my own company and set forth on my career path that I'm on right now. And that's all about making meaningful use of the internet. So you can see a lot of places where I'm speaking, I'm writing, I'm doing videos and interviews. It didn't happen overnight, but it came about by focusing on my personal brand. So again, what is your superpower? And how can you own it? And how can you make it authentically you? You notice I shared a vulnerability. How vulnerable is that to talk about your worst nightmare? But I took my worst nightmare and turned it into my superpower, because I knew that empowering young people with access to the internet, access to digital skills, and the tools that they needed to make meaningful use of the internet, I knew that this was bigger than my daughter, bigger than me, and bigger than all of us. Something that I could take and put my, let's call it my pain, and put it into something special that empowers others all over the world. So again, next thing is know your audience and who's listening. I work with heads of state, ministers, UN officials, students, academia, nonprofit, entrepreneurs, developers, CEOs, CTOs, peers, and IBMers. And I adjust my style and my message each time, but there's always a lens on the same thing. That's being authentic, being transparent, being approachable, and telling emotionally relevant stories. I share my vulnerabilities, and I do it while still being strong and confident. I volunteer to help, and empathy is always key for me. So you'll see some of the things that others have written about in the past. This is the president of Cape Verde. a small island state off of the west coast of Africa, or actually it's the prime minister talking about one of my projects. This is me on the stage of a large UN conference, and I'm on the same stage that Angela Merkel and the UN Secretary General were on previously. This is a story that I wrote about my trip to Pakistan that IBM shared with 8 million people. This is a UN article where the UN calls me the chief penguin of IBMZ. This is a Facebook message that I got from the cultural attaché of the US Embassy in Tunis, Tunisia. And she said, we were interviewing high school girls for our Tech Women Exchange program today. And when I asked one who she thought the most inspirational woman in tech in the world is, she said, you. I almost cry every single time I read this, because I know that my efforts have empowered many young girls to think about careers in tech and to think about coding as not being this mystical thing, it being an art form, a form of creative expression versus something like math or science. And she also said, it's not the first time your name has come up in interviews as a favorite woman leader. I also asked the question about women role models for Young Women's Leadership program we interviewed for a few months ago. You've made such an impact on the lives of young Tunisians. So again, I took my worst nightmare, my vulnerability, and packaged it up into something that could become my superpower. You may not have a story of your worst nightmare, and I hope you don't. But think about, what is it that you bring to the table, your secret sauce, and how can you let it shine to others by speaking and advocating and writing? Be there, be consistent, show up. So this figure is actually at the top is from 2019. In 2019, I spoke at 52 events in 10 countries. In 2020, I spoke at 150 some odd events. Yeah, crazy, right? I impact at least 20,000 people per year with my talks. I'm active in a variety of social media channels, and I talk about digital inclusion. I talk about entrepreneurship, startups, youth empowerment, gender inclusion, and I show my personal side. I still need to build my website. That's okay. I keep saying I'm going to do it next year, and then the next year comes. So just remember that you're not going to achieve everything that you want day one. You can see a lot of different, events and activities. For me, it's really important to speak and take part and listen, and you should too. So again, we had step 4, which is finding your industry peers and engaging with them. So I strive for meaningful and lasting connections with my industry peers, whether that's, a president of a country, entrepreneurs in Pakistan, a famous singer, the father of the internet, the minister of supply chain and logistics in Tunisia, a group of amazing young women in Pakistan, the Secretary of State from Cape Verde, the CTO of the Middle East and Africa in IBM, or a group of amazing computer science professors. So think about common ground. Think about, what can you learn? How can you advocate? How can you sponsor others, mentor others, and not forget that reverse mentoring is a thing, meaning someone with less experience than you, someone who's younger than you. Everyone has something to teach you, and you have something to teach others. So think about, what can you do? All right. And again, step 5, building unique, emotionally connected relationships. I build special relationships with everyone I meet, and I do my best to find an emotional connection between us by showing empathy, empowering others to tell their stories, finding that common ground, and inspiring others to shine in their own way. And again, encouraging everyone to be authentic. I give people the space to feel comfortable being vulnerable and share their thoughts, their ideas openly. So you can see a bunch of pictures here. This is my vice president, who is my big boss, if you will. This is a group of female entrepreneurs that I did a talk with back in 2019 or 2020, something like that. This is me in South Africa. This is me with Miri's book on brand storytelling. By the way, read that book. It's amazing. Brand Storytelling by Miri Rodriguez. This is one of my coding camps in Tunisia, where all of these young people learn to code. All right. You can find me on Twitter at Mentor Africa with a K. I hope you enjoyed today's presentation. I hope you take this and these 5 steps and run out and create your own personal brand. So thank you for taking part. I look forward to engaging further. So with that, have a great conference.